Hello, hello. Hope you're good. Borderline podcast. These are Darians. Um, I'm Levi, your host, and it's nice to take the time to record this. It's been a very difficult week in regards to my well-being and mental health and stuff like that. I had some bad news on Friday. Something to do with my day job, and it's kind of took a tool on me, I guess. So although there are some very good things that have happened during the week, um, the news that I got on Friday kind of took. Um, I don't know. It's almost like as if my in my head, it took a priority, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot since. Didn't sleep much on Friday night. Um, Saturday was better. That Saturday I went to bed. I was absolutely um, wiped out, but I don't think it was like. I mean, it still is. It's weird to just keep on using like steps like please, for example. Just looking after myself. I guess I generally before I started the recording now, I was like, oh, I should have a shower, but I really don't want to. Like even yesterday, I just want to go to bed. I haven't done much. I I don't want to do anything while today I jumped in the shower thinking that later on I have a gig I want to go to and try some material and that would be a good that was a good motivator, just the fact that I do something that I'm looking forward to. Otherwise I would have been just like on Saturday where I just sit on a couch and do nothing and just feel in one hand I felt so tired, in the other hand I had energy, but for nothing really important or nothing that really matters. I don't know. It was just a very very weird weekend, and I don't think I felt this bad probably since I don't know, maybe like a year or so ago. You know, on other news, other things in life are going very well. Sarma and Pickle are just so amazing and beautiful, and it's just so nice to be around them. There are some good news in regards of of my with or off. Anyway, there are some good news, comedy or like this sort of life related that I'm going to hopefully be able to share at some point soon. Um, and I've been writing loads. I've been writing some good. I think it's good stuff. We'll find out later if it is. Um, and that's been really nice. Um, I kind of, know that now. I think in a couple of days is going to be so. In November is my dad's like the date when he died, the anniversary of that, and I know that around this time I always feel a bit bad, and it's kind of hard to. I don't know. It still feels harder to process. No process. I sorry, that's not the right word. I processed it. I think a while back. It's just hard to deal with. It's just hard to be like, oh, okay. It's just I think the weather doesn't help. When everything is gray. You wake up it's gray. You go to bed it's gray. Yesterday was a sunny for like a couple of hours, which was really nice. But yeah, most of the time it's just I think the fact that it's close, or like it's, I guess, winter doesn't help with making myself feel better. And I'm sure talking with other people who have dealt with, grieving, I think it's a common, I would say problem, but it's a common thing. It happens to loads of us. Um, Now, this week's episode is with a good comedian. It's with Andrew. The great thing about Andrew is that we've talked about we talked about stuff basically ever since we met at the Friends comedy show, who's hopefully going to be on soon. But um, he's a very open guy. That's what I was gonna say. That's a great thing about it. He's a very open guy about like his mental health struggles, his the things that he's going through and the things that he's been through. And I think even or I remember even when I met him in person, and I was still figuring out stuff. Like it was before getting diagnosed with BPD, and it was actually after I moved to London when I didn't feel good almost at all. And not many people were just like honest, about not honest. That's not to say they were dishonest, just weren't talking beyond the point of like, yeah, how are you, good or bad? Oh yeah, I understand. Let's move on. While with Andrew was, yeah, it was pretty much a case of, him being, very open with his perhaps, yeah, mental health struggles, or yeah, whatever is going on in his life. And that was quite nice. That was quite again, retrospectively as well, looking at it, it was quite helpful, because although I wasn't talking about everything that was going on in my head, although um I was scared of addressing all the thoughts that I had, it was nice to at least feel like, although I've mentioned some things, some other people feel those things or similar things. And yeah, he helped out a lot. And look, it's um, it's going to be a good hour for you to listen to. I hope you enjoy. And yeah, I'll catch you before we say goodbye for this week. Okay, Andy, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, how
Uh,
are you?
I'm good. Also, just double checking. Do you prefer Andy or Andrew?
I prefer Andrew. No one
Okay,
calls me Andy.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Um as I said it, I was like, oh, I see you signed in as like Andrew, and I was like, ah, never mind. But cool. Sorry. Yeah, let's do it again. Andrew, how's it going?
Yeah, it's good, mate. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I mean, wait, no, are you're in London?
Yeah, I'm based in North London.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool. I don't know why I had. Were you away for a while, or like, what do you move around, or like you live around cities or anything like that? No.
No, I grew up in East London, and then moved to one or two other places, and then I've been in sort of Finsbury Park area for a couple of years.
I don't know why I in my head I thought that, although we haven't seen, just for context, we haven't seen each other for ages, but
Mm.
a part of me thought that you like migrated like a different country or so, and then
No,
came back or something like that. I don't know why. And then I thought, yeah, it's just in my head. Anyway, in my mind,
mate,
you were.
I clearly have a better life in your head than I have in real life.
I guess, yeah, but to a respect, Finsbury Park can be treated as a whole different country sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
But wait, so which part of East London then you grew up in?
I grew up in a place called Ilford. It's just outside of Stratford.
Shut
So,
up! I live near Ilford.
oh, do you?
Yeah, I live in South Woodford.
Oh, yeah, it's nice there. Oh, yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah, aren't
I
you
I
fancy?
I feel very lucky because I every time I go for like runs or walks, mostly walks to be honest, but it's the Epping Forest is nearby and it's
Yeah,
quite nice. So yeah, it's a quite nice area. So but then wow, so you're like a London born and bred then.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so where I live now is basically where my dad was born, which is nice.
No
So
way.
yeah, it's really cool. It's been a really nice sort of transition and development like the last couple of years. And also, to be fair, that so for people listening, you won't know this, but the rail network here from where I live is so much easier to get to every single one of the London gigs than it was from like over in East London.
No
Uh,
way.
yeah, like Finsbury Park's great, Victoria Line, and then loads of trains,
Piccadilly,
and
yeah.
yeah, it's really well. Like if I gig in Camden, I can get a bus there now. Um,
Oh
it
yeah, of
takes sort
course.
of 15 minutes.
I
Yeah,
feel so strange about Camden because to me it feels I don't know why in my head I feel like Camden is everywhere. Like Camden is east, it's north, it's West London, it's everywhere you look you have a Camden like there is a way to get in or around or I feel like that should be considered central London because that's how it feels like.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like it's harder to get into actual like I think City of London. It's so much harder actually than it is to get in
yeah.
Camden. I feel like everything goes through Camden or has is near Camden or it's happening around. Jesus
Yeah, it's
Christ. And
probably one of the most lively areas in London, so you're always hearing about it as well. So,
you
yeah,
know, as well, I did because there is a show that I did a couple of weeks ago, and I walked out of the Camden station, and then there were like those two people basically looking for like cigarette buds on the ground, but then they were talking about avocados being healthy fats, and I was like, and and I remember, I remember doing this, like doing the gig. I was like, I'm so confused, because as I walked out of the station, like, yeah, there were those two like guys, and again, two people that were just yeah, but you could see them like picking and like collecting, like half
yeah,
smoked cigarettes. And but then they were like, "Oh yeah, avocados are like the healthy fats, and you want healthy fats." And I was like, "I don't think you have your like health, like your your it sounds like in one hand you're looking after yourself, and then in the other
yeah,
hand you're like, oh, this is a half smoked cigarette, and I will
yeah,
take it and save it for later."
yeah.
And I was like, wow, what
From
is
the
happening?
bin. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Camden, and then
Yes. Yeah.
it's ridiculous. But no, so well, when did you? Because when you do comedy, for example, do you go outside of London a lot, or are you based
Yeah.
mostly?
So I currently, so most of my gigs have been in London, but that's also when you start out as well. There's hundreds of them, so it's quite easy to a degree to find them and then gig. So I predominantly do London just for proximity, but as you move up and you sort of uh, do more sort of longer spots or paid spots or hosting nights, things like that, you find that you have to go further away, which is that's sort of where I am at the moment. So the kind of anything that's sort of within an hour and a half from London on the train is roughly where I'm doing at the moment. Occasionally I'll, go further afield, but it's sort of not as routine as where I live. I've got two gigs on my street, so I could quite feasibly just wander into one of them any night. So it's yeah, the proximity is really useful, but I think in order to really grow, it's better to get outside and do talk to other people, do like different areas, different points of view, different perspectives, like because you've got you don't. It's hard to know if you work outside of London as a comedian when you only
Yeah,
are in London. Because of the demographics of people here, everyone's from everywhere and like all sorts of different types of people, and it's wonderful and it's a big melting pot. But then, you might go to a random village in the middle of nowhere, and if just for argument's sake, you might have a load of really highly political stuff, and then you'll go to a town where they all voted for them, and then you're basically just being mean about people they like, and then it won't work. So, yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I sometimes think about it where you, and especially I think at this level where we kind of, again, I can't talk for you, but definitely for myself, I'm just a name on the bill at the moment. Like, I'm not the comedian who's like, oh, I'm doing my show or whatever. And then basically it means that, like you said, people who, when you go to a certain town, you might upset the biggest,
Yeah.
say the mass audience is actually someone that you are upsetting, and then
Yeah.
you're kind of like, what you do then, because you can't be like, oh well, that's like what I do, they should know better, because they have no idea who you are. And it's kind of like, I agree with you, it's, I feel like every time I look at a bit, it's like, oh, I want to get my point across, but the point has to be, again, it has to be like, ultimately has to be seen as a joke. Like, this is entirely a joke. Like, although again, I'm very political, like I'm very opinionated, yeah, as a person. This is not an opinion. This is not me making a statement. This is just a joke.
Yeah, 100%. And so I've found I've wandered into a bit of a strange thing lately, where I've ended up doing a lot of dark comedy recently, and it was all by accident. I didn't intend it. So most of my humor is just silly, whimsical jokes and puns. That's usually where my stuff lives. And I found that I'd just written a load of dark jokes and I had nothing to do with them. And then someone was running a dark comedy night. I got up, I did it, and it was really fun. And so in order to practice them, you might find that you go to somewhere like I went into like the home counties or something around London, and then did a gig, and I was trying to practice my dark comedy stuff, and the room were not okay with that. Like, it was because, and I learned a lot from that gig, like a heck of a lot of, you just don't go straight in. You've got to get them to like you at least a little bit first. So
yeah, for sure.
That's the difference, is because I didn't do any sort of warm-up material to kind of like, hey, this is what I'm about, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Please like me, please know their jokes. If you don't do that and you just go straight in, some people just think you're a bit weird.
But also what I have noticed from just like seeing you on social media, because again, in person we haven't met in a very long time, but you love emceeing, you do
I
a lot.
do.
Why? I'm just curious. I'm genuinely curious.
Why do you love that?
What?
Because it pays money. No, it's because do you know what it is? So I like to think I'm good at it, which is, it sounds, I don't want to be arrogant or anything, but it just fits me better as a person. So I very much feel like, with comedy, you write your set, you practice your set, you write, you practice, you write, you practice, and then you start gigging and gigging and gigging and refine all the way along. With MCing, you've got a bit more flexibility to just be yourself and be funny. And I just really enjoy the kind of how relaxed that can be. And I just treat it like I'm sort of in a pub in the beer garden talking to people. And as a result, I like to think that means we end up with quite friendly, welcoming rooms where people feel comfortable to laugh. And you're not picking on people, because I think that's the biggest fear as well when people come to comedy shows, is that they're going to get picked on. Whereas, I'll chat to people, there might be like, teasing and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's never that kind of, oh, what do you do? Where are you from? Oh, that's a horrible place. What's wrong with you? Like, and you just make people feel bad about where they live. Whereas, I like the kind of, you just have fun. You talk about the area you're in and what's this like then? How's it different from other places? And you just make jokes, and I just really, really enjoy it. I think it suits me.
Are you like that off stage? Like, are you? I want to say, are you like a? Do you like? Are you a social person? Like, are you like you're? I guess in the respect of like, do you? Are you like constantly, surrounded by people? Are you like okay with that? Like, how's your social batteries like?
So yes, I am, and I both love and hate it. And this won't be a surprise to anyone I know who's listening because I'm not going to say anything that'll make them go, "Oh my god, I had no idea." So, so I do comedy because I'm like this as a person. So like I was in a pub yesterday, and somebody was talking to me and they're like, "You should do stand up. I think you'd be good at it." And I'm like, "Well, funnily enough, I do." But yeah, like I love being around people. I really do, and laughing, joking, smiling, just having fun, having a nice time, and trying to not be too serious about life as much as possible because it's hard at the minute. So I really enjoy that. But then I have like real peaks and troughs. So every now and again, I'll get really burnt out and then just want to lock myself away for like, I'm a very extroverted introvert kind of person, or the other way around,
Fair.
maybe an introverted extrovert. Who knows? But it's this like, because I'll go do a gig and it might go well, it might go badly, have no idea. And then I'll have a lovely time, wander home, get in bed, next day, just don't want to do anything, don't want to see anyone, don't want to speak to anyone. And that's not just with gigging, that's with anything in my life can be like that. So I have to be really, really like careful and protective over that social battery thing. So like just for context, I have anxiety and depression, like really quite bad. So I have to make sure that it's very weird. I'm more than happy to do really spontaneous things a lot of the time
No way.
because I don't have the time. Yeah, I love it because so it's weird because my anxiety wants me to have planned something for ages, but my depression will make me worry about it. So whereas the other way around, if I just do spontaneous things, I don't have time to panic and overthink. So it's just like, all right, well, pub tonight? Okay, cool, let's go. And I'll be out the door. If I wait too long, I will change my mind. So it's yeah, and sometimes I need that. It's just surprise myself with plans.
That's interesting, because I think I'm a bit of a, or like the way I see things, or like the way I address them in my head, is quite the opposite, where I would sometimes do, like, I would say yes to something unplanned, but then whilst I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, why have I done this? Why have like, although I say physically I'm there, like I'm
Mm,
meant to, because this is one of the things that I had to, I guess, relearn when I was doing something called dialectual behavioral therapy, which is something that you get like basically advised, or it's on the treatment plan for people who live with borderline personality disorder, like myself. And then it's something called living in the moment, where you basically have to just like technically, again, live in the moment, where you don't think about, oh, this is going to happen, or that's, or oh my god, I can't believe that happened. You're more of a, oh, I'm now talking with Andrew, all I can think about is how I'm talking basically with you, rather than, oh my god, the weather was like, I got soaking wet the other week, how annoying,
yeah,
or then what's going to happen next. And it's just one of the I find it as one of the hardest things to do, because like, say for example, when I was in the when I would like go and socialize, and I'd be in a pub or anything like that, I'd be like, it's time for me to have a drink, and I'm like, oh, why did I get the drink? I should have not gotten the drink, or maybe I should have got another drink, or maybe I should have, and then I'll drink the drink, and I'm like, okay, I need another. So it, because I'd be like, oh, I need something else to not worry about, but then once I've done it, it's like, oh, why have I done it? It's too much. That's the last one. Maybe not. Maybe it's not the last one. Maybe I'll get. Yeah.
yeah. No, I get that entirely. I had that a bit last night, if I'm honest. Yeah. So yeah, being present is such a hard thing as well. Like
It's
just trying
ridiculous,
to
yeah.
like it's also probably one of the most gratifying things though. In terms of this sounds really daft, but as an achievement, it feels really good and it's quite easy to get to a degree because rather than thinking about 100 different things all at the same time, just enjoying the time you're spending with someone, or even if it's on your own, but just being present in that moment and being sort of mindful of what you're doing and what you're thinking and what's happening, it feels so different. Like since I've started trying to do that a lot more, like I've always been very present, but then also wildly ADHD and distracted and all that. Like it's just, oh look, a bird. It's terrible. I'm really bad for that. But then just that being able to sit there and pay attention to another person and give them the time, like you say, rather than just being there in body, like being able to actually speak and listen and converse is really quite a gratifying, fulfilling experience. Especially if the person's cool. If they're not, don't worry about it. Like just
Sometimes it's annoying because sometimes I feel like the more annoyed I am with someone or like the conversation, the actually more involved I get because I'm like, I like you anyway. I'm not gonna pay attention. But then if I'm like, oh, this person is really doing my head in, I'll
yeah.
I'll be like, I'll scrutinize every single thing that they said or done or.
Yeah.
But now I was going to, and I was quite curious. When did you, or like, how did you find out, about like how did the anxiety and the depression to you, like how did it express for you in the first place? Like when did you find out that, oh, is this anxiety or is this depression? And then also when do you remember, I guess, the first times when you're like, oh, I feel this weird worry about everything, or I feel again the symptom of depression, but without knowing, is that, I don't know, how did it start? Like how did you notice it?
So it's weird. I basically, to a degree, had it my whole life. So like my dad passed away when I was sort of 10, 11 years old. And then and in that period between sort of, I don't know, being 8 and 18 or something, I lost like two nans, my dad, two aunties, two uncles. Like, look, there was a lot of death basically. And so pretty much every year we had a funeral for for about 10 years. And I didn't quite realize, because you're young as well, you don't realize that's not the norm. Like, I just assumed that was happening to everybody around me. And then you start to notice differences in behaviors between you and other kids because you have to grow up quicker. You have to accept new responsibilities. You have to do more as a person. And you kind of mature very, very fast, which is not a word people would use for me nowadays. But it's that kind of trying to just so the depression, I think I really sort of noticed when I was probably in my 20s when I really, really took notice of it, because for that whole period, I couldn't work out if it was just grief, but continuous grief, which was making me feel that way. And then you kind of add in like teen angst and all of that. And that's normal for everybody across the board. Everyone's just a bit weird when they're a teenager.
Yeah,
And
of course.
then you start you make stupid life choices. You act like a prat around everybody. And, you just kind of, but then it's when I started to, and I look back now and you're like, okay, I made a bad choice. I kissed someone's girlfriend, whatever it is, like on a night out, right? Just as an argument. And then the next day, just really hammering myself for doing that. And just beating yourself up over and over and over again for oh, you shouldn't have done that. That was really stupid. But like I say, it wasn't until much sort of later that I realised that that was the symptom of the depression and not just who I am at my core.
Interesting. But this is a very, you said a couple of things that I was like, oh wow, like the one with the the idea of like maturity, when you're like, oh, you gotta grow up a bit faster, or you gotta do all these things a bit quicker. Because I kind of with my sadly I've sadly also lost my parents a few I think my dad that when I turned 20, and then my mom a few years ago. But basically as soon as because they divorced when I was in my teens, and then when I was 17 I moved to England on my own, and you're kind of like, oh okay, that's it, now you're an adult. But
Yeah.
the thing is that basically what I was going to say that I found very interesting, because I felt like, oh my God, yeah, that's so true. That sometimes people would find me either incredibly mature or incredibly immature. And I kind of I get it, because it's like one of those things where sometimes in some respects you just had to grow up like almost like this, you gotta like do all these things for yourself, you gotta decide, you gotta do again, you have more responsibility than your peers would at the same
Yeah.
age. But then in the other hand, you in some other ways you actually still remain a child.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people talk about like 18 is such an arbitrary age to be an adult now. I don't know who picked it, don't know why they picked it, why they needed it, right? Someone went, okay, well, you're 18, you're old enough to be an adult. Who knows, right? But realistically, you look at, like, age is such a weird thing, because you look at footballers, for instance. You've got players who are like, oh, and they're the oldest player on the pitch, and they're 32 years old. They're going to retire soon. And you're like, they're younger than me, like that, and they're the old, like the people with a good head on their shoulders. When I was still like 28, which is in their prime, when I was 28, I was still making stupid life choices. Like we all do, right? So this idea of like, you've kind of, I think it's like just sort of a societal thing where you've got to be at a certain point and do certain things by certain ages. Like, by 25, you've got to have had a house and a mortgage and children and all that. Why? Who chose that? Who decided that? Because also, if I ended up with some of the people I was with when I was sort of 17, 18, my life would be, both of our lives would be terrible. I am not the same guy I was then. Like, yeah, it's a weird one. So
That's
there's
so
just so
true.
much. Yeah,
That's so true. And I wouldn't. I think I look back at my own, like thing. I'm like, I would have never. I wouldn't date myself if it was me. Or like, but when I was so obnoxious and I was so. What's the word? Because I was so terrified of being like dumped as a teenager that
yeah,
now when I look back at it, I'm like, I get it, because it was just every five minutes I'd be like, hey, do you love me? Because I love you if you love me, but if you don't love me, I hate you. Sort of. Again,
yeah.
I didn't say that, but it was between those lines where I just be like the seeking of reassurance and stuff like this, and you're like, whoa. And although sometimes, again, funnily enough, sometimes you find myself, no, you, but like my partner would find myself very like attention seeking, and be like, hey, can you just stare at me for a few minutes while I do nothing?
That's the thing though in life. Like, I think it's probably not a generalization to say that I think everyone just wants to be loved. Right? Now, whether that's romantic love, whether that's friendship love, whether that's the love of a child, a pet, anything, I think everybody needs that to get by. And the fear of not having that is frightening. It's terrible. And then you start making stupid decisions, or you start like, you over engineer things, you overthink things, and it drives you crazy. And I've definitely experienced that. Like, it's just how it is, because this craving for something that is so intangible that you can't. If I want money, I can put a plan in place to go and get money, right? So, apply for jobs, go do a job, like interview, job, get money. You can put a plan in. because it's tangible, it's something real that's there. But to get love or respect and things like that, you can't plan for that. You've just got to hope that somebody wanders by who just finds you have all the things they want, or vice versa. It's so random. It's just, yeah.
It's true. And I was thinking about one of the things, when you were, what was it like? I guess basically like dealing with grief, like especially because you said like everything that's happened in your family, going like almost every year you'd have at least like a loved one, uh, like you'd suffer the loss of a loved one. But what was it like? Like were you like talking to each other, or were you like open about it, or even like about you more than anything, because it's your own own journey and your own story that we are talking about, or like we're talking about here. But yeah, like what was it like for you? Like, because obviously you said that in your 20s you were like, oh, is this grief, is this depression, I don't know. But then even before that, were you aware of like grief being a thing, or was it just, yeah, I don't know, what did you feel, what did you think that you were feeling at the time?
So at the time, I mean, I was hyper aware of the grief, like very, very aware, because I mean, they sent me to grief counselling, all sorts like that, and like just going out to try and like, oh, this is a ridiculous story, by the way. So I was about 12, and I had to leave school at a certain time to go to the grief counsellor's office and spend an hour there, come back to school. And this one day, I went there and they cancelled my appointment, but I didn't know. So I'd walked sort of 20, 30 minutes to get there, and then it was cancelled. I'm like, well, that's good. I feel happy about this. I don't need to, what's the word? Like, I've got an hour free where I can just sit with myself and not have to talk about my feelings or my emotions and all that. So I was really quite happy that I didn't have to be in school for an hour as well, because I was 12. And so I just slowly wandered back to school, and then someone mugged me. Like, it was... and I tell you what,
So sorry.
mate, it's like, how is your luck? Like, you're meant to go and sort out grief and misery, and then on the way, you just get more grief and misery. Like, it's just insane to me how stupid that day worked out.
What?
Yeah.
But also, I
Yeah.
don't. I've never understood the idea of mugging kids. That's just like as a side note, because I'm like, what do you expect to find on a kid? Especially,
Do you know what?
yeah, go on.
Oh, sorry. Someone tried to mug me one time, and we were so poor growing up, right? Like, we were really poor. And someone tried to mug me. I showed them my phone, and they refused to take it. Like, that's how, like, it was terrible. It was it was a BT Cellnet phone. They don't even exist anymore, that brand. Like, it
Yeah,
was,
yeah. Oh my God.
yeah,
Fair
it
enough.
was terrible.
I think the thing is, oh God, this is the first time I'm going to talk about it. But a couple of maybe a month ago, I got scammed over the phone, where they were like, oh, there is some suspicious activity on your like bank
Ah.
account, and I was like, oh, okay. And then they were like, oh, how much? Basically, they were like, oh, how much have you got on your bank account? And I was like, oh, I'm on overdraft already. And you and the the guy was like, okay, fine, we'll call you back in 30 minutes. And I didn't
No.
I didn't get the call.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I got basically I saved myself all this like again money just by the fact that I was
Mm.
like I'm already on the limit, almost like on the limit of my overdraft. And they were
Yeah, yeah.
like, yeah, don't worry.
Yep.
Oh
Oh, mate, that's
God.
ridiculous.
But
The
I
thing
don't,
is, that what's really sad is I can relate as well.
yeah, we're like, I think I was like, good luck, if you can, like, you want to max out my credit card if you're trying to get like a meal deal from Tesco. Don't.
Yes. What's that? A 99p
It's
cheeseburger? It's been declined.
Blah. Transaction declined as you don't have enough funds in your account.
Way to get them back. Like,
Yeah, I was
that's horrible. Like, oh, sorry, you're too poor to rob.
yeah, I was telling my partner, I was like, what, I wouldn't be surprised if anything tomorrow they transfer some money on my bank account and just be like, hey, we're sorry you're having a rough time. If anything, I
Yeah.
think that's a good way to make money as a scammer, because you can give loans at a lower interest. You can literally, like
Oh,
Robin Hood. That's a good
yeah.
business idea. Robin Hood loans. Steal from the rich and then loan to the poor at a very low interest rate. But yeah, they didn't
It'd be
though.
a very
Again,
different job. Yeah.
yeah, it's been over a month now, and I still haven't got the again any extra money in my bank account. But man, that's why. Wait, so everything, this all happened in East London,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Everything happens in East London. It's a crazy, crazy place.
oh God, man, but that's so. I don't know. I think it's just that because my only luckily for me, I had to go and see the school's. We had the school psychiatrist, and
Hmm.
they sent me there because I hit a colleague of mine with a chair. Although the thing is, we were like technically wrestling each other, like in WWE style. So
Right.
basically, he jumped on me from a table. So he like climbed the table and then jumped on me, and then it hurt. So I was like, "Oh, you asshole!" So then I just took the chair again, WWE style,
Yeah.
and just hit him on the back. And then as we were fighting, I got the chair and he got another chair. And then basically I threw at him. I threw the chair towards him. He dodged it. It hit we had the glass board. It hit the glass
Oh.
board. It broke the board. We get to basically have
Oh.
to go and see the count. Yeah, and I had to see a psychiatrist for I think 5 or 6 times. Luckily, it was in the school. Like I would just go out of class, and I think for a while I was the same. I would be like, "Oh, I just get." They were like, "Oh, as a punishment, you get to skip class for 6 times," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, I'm such a bad boy. I'm so sad."
Do you know, it's a shame though, because like, and this is just because of the way mental health has always been perceived, right? But so this was late 90s, right? That I was going to this counsellor, and well, yeah, so it's what, 98, something like that. And counselling is horrible, right? For me, anyway. It might work for some people, but it really didn't for me, because counselling was just you go there and you sit and you talk, and they don't really do anything. They don't really say anything back. And especially given the state of the mental health services back then, I mean, they're bad now, but back then they also just sort of, you just sit there and chat to someone, and then they'll be like, and all they ever did was, and how did that make you feel? And you're like, well, it made me feel terrible. And how did that make you feel? And you're like, there was shit. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this.
Yeah, you can, don't worry.
Oh, thank goodness. But I was just like, it was just, it didn't help me at all to just talk about, like, okay, so your dad's dead. How's that make you feel? How do you think it makes me feel? Right?
That's
It
true.
feels
Yeah.
like my dad is dead. Like, there's not a lot you can really do with that. Like, okay, I feel sad. Okay, do you want to give me any tips on how to not be
Think
sad?
so?
Do you want to talk me through it? Do you want to maybe, are you trying to lead me to my own conclusions here? It'd be really handy because you're an adult if you just gave me a little piece of advice. But that wasn't their job. Their job was to listen. So, for all intents and purposes, I could have just been talking to a wall the whole time, sit in a room on my own and do it. For all the sort of help it gave. and that's 100% my experience. Like I say, it might work for other people, but over the years, other things have come through, like CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy, much better, miles better. Because it was like I did that a few times. Like I did a group one first, and then what was it? Yeah, so we did the group thing, sitting around, like just trying to teach you how to not respond and react in a way that you were used to doing. So, like, they gave really good things. Like, there was that talk of, if you had a mate who said everything to you that you say to yourself, would you still be friends with that person? And you're like, no, I would punch them. Like, they would be, yeah, exactly. It's like they would be in a ditch somewhere. Like, I would not have someone speak to me that way. But it's perfectly fine and acceptable, like, for me to do it to myself, Which, why is that? And that kind of thinking did help. And but also understanding triggers and spiraling, like, because we don't get taught mental health in school. We're just expected to have it, right? We do PE for physical health, but we never ever sort of sat down and did like, okay, what does it take to be a good person? How do you try and ensure that you're a happy person or a fulfilled person or any of those things? You don't talk about it. And that's probably the biggest piece of life, right? It's, if you can get on top of your mental health, then frankly, the rest of life is easier. And, you can deal with stuff better. So, yeah, so being able to sit in the room with people.
And then what did you do, or like, what do you do now, I guess, because, you had your own journey and you're like, hey, look, this doesn't work for me. But then were you able to replace it with anything, or like, what do you do now to basically make sure that, I guess, you're, trying your best to, understand your emotions, to, again, like, yeah, like, just like, what's your coping style, I guess, now?
Mostly drinking.
That's a
No, I
worrying.
don't recommend that.
Yeah.
No, do you know what it is? So I've taken bits and pieces and like from different things I've done over the years, but so I try and be a lot more aware of when I'm starting to spiral. So spiraling is huge for me. Like, it will just perpetuate, and I'll get in my own head and think the same thing over and over, and then, okay, and how could this get worse? And how could this get worse? And how, until I just can't function, right? So, just for example, it could be, just using comedy as an example, would be, right, okay, well, I'm running a bit late to this gig. Okay, does that mean I'm not going to get on? Or does that mean I'm going to ruin their show? And then they won't have enough people. And then I'll get blacklisted from comedy. And then no one will ever book me again. And then I'll have to find a new hobby and I won't be as good at it. And you just end up doing that, all because I missed the bus, right? Something benign as that. So being able to kind of manage that and go, right, okay, you're spiraling now, stop. And then every time, it took a lot of years, but every time I started to notice a spiral a bit earlier every time. So previously, I might notice the spiral when I got to and I'll never be booked for comedy again. Whereas the time after that, it might be, okay, I'll get like blacklisted. Oh, okay, then we get you go earlier and earlier and earlier. So that the point is, okay, I've missed the bus. Right, I should apologize. I'll send a message and tell them.
Yeah.
Right? That's all I can do. That's in my control. And I would say, look, I've missed my bus. Here's the absolute truth of the situation.
Yeah.
I missed my bus. I'll be there, and roughly at this time, I'll see you then. Sorry about the inconvenience, kind of thing. Like, and you just take ownership of your behaviors and things, and just trying to, like, for me, that's one of the biggest things as well. All of the grief I had and stuff as a kid was all stuff that happened to me, right? To a degree, like people dying.
Yeah.
Is out of my control. So it's okay. So how do you take control of things? And that is where all the anxiety and depression came from. Really, is a lack of control. So I now need to have all of the facts and all of the data before I make a decision on anything, unless I then just randomly go and do something spontaneous, which is quite freeing. But in terms of coping mechanisms, it's purely just to try and address it earlier, trying to notice it quicker. I do meditation at night, kind of stuff, like sleep casts, journeys, all that kind of stuff. They're really nice. They've helped loads. And I've also got a really good friend of mine who I can just sort of, hey, look, I'm spiraling, right? I never thought I would ever be the person to do this, all right? And we would talk, like, we've been friends for years now, and they just, they've got a really good response structure to me, which is good. And now I do it to other people, which has helped, which is, if I say, look, I'm spiraling, they'll respond with, okay, what do you need? Do you want me to listen while you chat about it? Is it that you want advice? Or like that kind of thing. So I get to make a choice about, like, look, I just want to vent, right?
Uh-huh.
This has gone bad. And rather than me spiraling actively, I can talk to you about it. I'm going to moan for the next sort of 10 minutes, and they're just going to sit there and go, yeah, you're right. They were an arse, like, or whatever it is. Just back me up. I get it off my chest. Or other times it's like, you know what? I think I just need some advice. And then you'll talk about it and they'll go, yeah, on balance, I can see why you're upset, but maybe try this next time. And that's made huge differences to how I treat other people as well and talk to other people. So yeah, it's quite nice, and you feel valued for doing it as well. But also just a random thing as well, like when people are dealing with grief in particular, just this is just generally good advice for life, I think. If you're ever dealing with someone who's going through grief, the absolute best thing you can do for them is behave exactly the same way that you always have done with them. Don't change a thing. So if, for argument's sake, you and I, we would go out for a beer and we would spend the entire time just calling each other names, right?
Yeah.
If someone passed away and then I went out with you and you didn't do that, I would be uncomfortable because it's not what I'm used to. And I've decided to go out with you because I need that. I need to have that normality that we've always had. So, yeah, that's just a general bit of advice for people.
You know what, I kind of, again, I get it, because it's true. I think sometimes it gets to, or at least from like my experience, is that I remember when it was a little bit different. I think when from when my dad died, because it wasn't like a set structure in place, or like I didn't have close friends or things like that. Like it wasn't too much going on for me. But I remember for sure around the time when my mom died, where everyone was kind of like, like walking on like thin ice around me, and I would be like, hey, it's again, because I'm not gonna lie, to certain aspects I did like. But I was like, oh, I'm a bit, because I think I was like, oh, I'm the center of attention. How, terrible. But in the other hand, I was like, if because like sometimes I think you said something earlier about how, what is it that you want as a support from the people around you, and sometimes I think I kind of go in this way where sometimes I need to vent, sometimes I need someone's advice, and sometimes I also need to just like be put into place where it's like, hey, you're actually being the asshole. And I I remember sometimes just missing that, where I was like, I know that I am being a moron, like I know that I'm being on the wrong now.
Yeah.
And I remember that sometimes actually seeking to just see like how far I can go, into like, because I remember, although again this was only for the sake of at the time I was basically having a story with someone, because basically I, just for context as well, I was meant to be an abortion. And then I was talking with a friend of mine, and I pretended during that in a conversation. Again, it was a couple of months after my mom passed. It was the same summer after my mom passed, and I was like, you know what? I don't. I'm not pro-choice. I don't think that's. I don't think that should be a thing. I'm all for the babies. We need the babies, but I was just like pushing it. Just going so like
Yeah.
so much about it, but also trying to be serious. And then I could just see on my mate's face, who was also a very opinionated person that I've had many arguments throughout the
Yeah.
years about certain things. And I could just see them just like trying to hold back and just be like, I understand. Okay, yeah, I understand. And I was like, come on, come on, come on, give me something. I really need to have I
Yeah.
really want this fight.
Yeah. Well, that's it, mate. Here's something that was super weird. This was after. So when my dad died, there was a decision made to not tell anybody. Right? It wouldn't affect. No, sorry. I should clarify. At school. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I realised at the moment. Yeah. Yeah. So this is me announcing my dad died when I was 11.
Your family goes, oh my God, no way. I thought he was just gone all this time.
Yeah. It was just a big queue in that shop. So no, he what was it? Yeah, so my year group, because I was so young, they didn't want to unsettle me, so they didn't tell anybody. Whereas my brother's year, which was a couple of years older than me, made an announcement. So it just got round immediately. And so the thing I hated was people coming up and being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? And getting that 40, 50, 100 times a day was horrible. And it all comes from a place of love. That's the thing, right? But constantly being asked if you're okay when you're obviously not okay
Yeah.
is stupid. Like I say, it comes from a place of love. But I had it when my bullies were coming up to me and asking if I'm okay. And I was like, what is this world we're in now? I don't understand this. It's
They'll be
so
like,
nuts.
yeah, out of respect, we're gonna let Andrew be this month.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We're not going to tease him. We're not going to make fun of his hair or whatever it is. Yeah, it's just
No,
stupid.
if that's the case, I kind of this is gonna sound really horrible, but I wish my dad died earlier, because then I would have had my bullies give me a bit of a break at school. That's probably the only. Yeah, actually, the only thing that I've done, because I used to lie a lot when I was in high school. I think actually up to like my early 20s, but especially in high school, and I lied to one of my teachers that my dad's in prison.
Okay.
And it worked for like 6 months, where I would just like breeze through his classes. Every time I was like, if I wasn't attending, he wasn't, like counting it against me, because when he asked me why is my dad in prison, I was like, he killed someone for disrespecting him.
What? Like, what's a reason I can give this teacher to make them fear me?
Yeah. Basically, the thing, what happened is, in this case, he was the physics teacher, and every Monday morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. we had physics. But
No,
then,
that's so
yeah,
early.
but then I know, but then from 8 to 9 we had PE. So then I'd skip physics, because I'd sleep, and then I'd go and do PE. But then the thing is, because his next class was next to the pitch, he could see me
Oh,
through the window, and he was like, "Hey, why do you not come to my classes on Monday morning, but then to the next class you're always there?" And I was like, "Oh, it's because on Sundays I go and visit my dad in prison." And and the commute takes too long, so me and my mom drive back on Monday morning.
that is a great lie.
I know, and I came with it on the spot as well. Like, I was so proud of myself at the time. And the thing is, it worked, because my last name was Popovich, which I don't use, but that's because I was adopted. So like my actual like adoptive dad didn't his last name wasn't Popovich. But then
Oh,
7 or 8 months later, my dad comes to school for some reason. I think it was a meeting or something. And
Oh
then
no.
he sees, basically the teacher sees me and my dad in the car, and then he stops and he says hello to my dad on the first name. They knew each other. Because back in the,
No.
yeah, because back in the day, it's a whole complicated story, but like back in the day, they worked
Oh.
together for a bit, and then he looks at me and he goes like, "Who's this?" And then my dad goes like, "Oh, this is my son," and the teacher is fuming. Like you could see the teacher was like, "Okay."
Oh no.
Yeah, and then I remember the first physics test, he just failed me. He was like minus, like in Romania, we have from 1 to 10, and he just gave me a 1. He didn't even check the paper. He's like, 1. I was like, hey, why are you giving me a 1? It's like, you lied to me.
That is really good karma.
I
Really
know,
good
yeah.
karma.
Again, look, I deserved it. I'm not saying that, but it's just, yeah, I was like, yeah, my dad's in prison. It was like, why is he in prison? Someone disrespected
Yeah.
him. And
Yeah.
it was amazing, honestly. Again, it was a nice 7 months.
Right.
I had fun. I don't feel
Yeah.
bad because the teacher was an asshole. Just on for like, on retrospective, I feel bad for lying, but I don't feel bad for lying to him. If that
Right.
makes
Yeah.
it better. But anyway, so now,
Still haven't known what gravity is, but yeah.
yeah, still a lie, but a better lie.
Yeah.
Man, but this is just wild, and you know what? But again, I do agree with you, and I feel like although oh yeah, sorry, the other thing that I was gonna say while listening to earlier was about when you were saying that for example, like the meditations app that you use, or like things that like I guess like background noises before sleeping and things like that, which funnily enough don't work for me. Not funnily enough, but also like I can just see why. And I agree so much with the fact that everyone's different, and
Oh yeah.
everyone, and it's also based on what you were saying earlier about, like, we do PE when we were at school, but
Mm.
then you never do anything. It just feels like, and I guess even from like although our stories are like so different about like our first experiences with seeking or seeking, like seeing some someone from, like, I guess like a medical support. They are so
Yeah.
different but yet so similar, because it's like something extreme has had to happen to
Absolutely. Yeah.
then be. But then I don't know what was it like for you, but to me there wasn't even. To me it was kind of a thing of like, oh, you're broken, something, you're really fucked up in the head, you need to see
Mm.
this woman. And you, again, because otherwise you might go into, like, you might have, because I remember at the time my teacher going like, you might have to go to a special school because you can't behave like this in a normal
Right.
school. And I was like, also, it was a private school that I was in, so I was like, "Listen, lady, my parents pay a lot of money for you, so don't treat me."
And
But
as soon
anyway,
as he gets out of prison,
yeah,
yeah.
and as soon as he gets out of prison, he's not gonna take this disrespect. But yeah, no, that's the
But
thing. You
that
see, go on.
no, go on. Sorry. Yeah.
That's what I was saying. It's just the
No,
fact
it's
that you
just got
had
to
to
say,
go there.
yeah, yeah. It's because you sometimes just need it. Like I I've been trying to quantify and rationalize my feelings and thoughts and all of that for the longest time, and I just remember I sort of came up with this philosophy thing, which has helped me quite a lot. But like what's funny is you've got one one size doesn't fit all, right? Because like you and I have different things going on in our heads. Now, even somebody with the exact same stuff as me will have different processes and things that work for them. Like the sleepcast things I quite like because I listen to like Headspace or Balance or whatever it may be. And I just put this thing on and it's just someone talking about people going into, it's called the Midnight Laundrette. So it's just people going in, there's a load of washing machines going around, right? That's it. And they're just talking about the people. And because my brain is always going, it's easier for me to listen to that and fall asleep than it is for me to just have music on or white noise or whatever it is. Because there's still a story happening and they're really boring. What is really bad though is I used to listen to two particular ones. One was about rain, and one was about this laundrette. And I remember in my old flat we had our tumble dryer in the living room, and there was one day it was raining. I could hear the rain and the tumble dryer, and I just fell asleep.
Nice.
Yeah. It was like the middle of the afternoon, and I was.
To be fair,
But
I don't know
yeah,
what's with afternoons, but I fall asleep like this as well.
I love a nap. It's like my
Yeah.
favourite thing in the world. Yeah, it's so good.
This is so funny though, because it's like, you like now in every single condition or like whatever happens, if you see a bit of rain and you're like, oh God. Imagine emceeing in the rain, like if there is rain
Oh,
outside and
right.
you're like people talking
Just
to you and
slowly
you're like,
running off.
yeah, I see. No
It's
way.
like a
Yeah.
nugget.
I'm like, oh, what you do for a living again?
Yep. This is why I could never do stand up, like sitting down on a stool or something. I would just be gone.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's I stopped doing it because actually, when you were talking earlier about how you went into like doing darker comedy
Yeah.
recently, and I think when I was doing probably like my darkest stuff around the time when we actually met David's
Mm.
gigs.
Yes.
I used to sit down then, and I actually noticed this thing where I sit down. I tend to go like, you know what? I'm just gonna say whatever is going through my mind, very like
Oh, really?
unfiltered shit. Yeah, and I kind of noticed the difference. While now I'm a bit like, even if I wanted to sit down, I can't sit down. Although I
Right.
still say I talk about like my parents not being alive or things like that, but I just feel different about it I think then I was still processing stuff because I know a lot of the things I was saying were just like it felt unfiltered. While now I'm kind of like I made more peace with it. I'm like, oh, okay, I actually get it. But then this is actually a good question to get even like close to an hour. But the question I have to ask you is, why stand up? How did you get into it? Was it like, did you stumble across it? Were you always into comedy and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna give this a try? Or yeah.
So I've always loved comedy. I think in year 6, so I would have been 10, 9, something like that. We did a talent show where I did stand up. I
No
did
way.
some. Yeah, I forgot all about this, right? Until someone reminded me a little while ago. And it weren't my own material. I took like famous comedians and did theirs for
That's
like
probably
5
what
minutes.
they do as well. Don't worry. I was joking.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Especially this one. So, yeah, I'm not going to name names because you will end up getting like done for libel or something. It was, yeah. So I took this comedian's material, went on stage as like a 9-year-old, and did their jokes, and it was no good. It was rubbish. But then we just, what's that? Yeah, we did what we had to do. So we just ended up going off, like me and my friend, when we were. How long have I been doing this now? A couple of years. So he really, really wanted to do an improv course. So we signed up to that. This was pre-COVID, I think. Yeah. So he booked us for an improv course. Just an introduction to improvised comedy. And he's like, this will really help me get the stick out my ass. I'm like, cool, like no problem. I'll come along. It would be fun. And then by week 8 of 8, he goes, yeah, because I really need to get the stick out my ass. I'm like, mate, if it hasn't happened yet, it's not happening, right? So then he saw they did a stand-up course, which we did remotely during COVID. Now, to be fair, they did the best they could with it, but I don't recommend a remote stand-up course because basically as well, you end up our class show thing, which is what happens at the end of the comedy
Yeah.
courses, we couldn't do in public. So we did it on Zoom with the people who were left in the class. And there was only like 5 of us left at this point. So I'm stood there in my living room. Everybody's on mute, right? So I'm just telling jokes to silence, right? And it was mortifying. right? And then yeah, and because it was like a certain time of night as well, my mate was doing his one in his car. Like it was all really like weird. So then we did the level 2 of the stand-up course. That was fun. In person, much better. Yeah, it was a really good course as well. It was the Hoopla one. So that was really good fun. And then I did 5 gigs and was like, I'm never doing this again. This is terrible for my mental health. I hate stand-up.
No way.
Um, yeah. And for a year, I didn't do any. And then he's like, let's do stand-up level 3. I'm like, no, I'm okay. He's like, well, I've booked it. You owe me £200. I was like, for God's sake. So I did it, and I honestly haven't looked back. It's because I completely had to reframe my thoughts around comedy. And, you know, I've always loved comedy. I grew up watching it with my dad and my mum and all sorts of comedians as well, like Tommy Cooper's, even like Freddie Starr, like those kind of comedians back in the day, Bob Monkhouse. And then my sister was a massive like Eddie Izzard fan. And so I've seen them live, just unbelievable, really, really good. But I had this, it's like my first 5 gigs or something. I was in like the front of a pub. People are having dinner around you, you know. And,
Yeah.
and I just remember thinking, I'm like, I worked on this set. I worked really hard on it. It's very good. I'm very funny as a person. So why isn't this working? Right? Why is that person over there getting more laughs than I am? They're not as good as me. Like real arrogant thinking. And it was just a path to misery. So I had to change my entire thought process around it for when I went back and started again, which was, how long have they been going? Have they improved since last time? Cool, good on them. Have I improved since last time? Oh, because for me now, it's not me against them, right?
Yeah.
I see comedy now as like a team sport. So you all go into the same room, and it's almost you, not even you against the audience, like not like they're the other team, but if I do well on the same bill that you do well on, and someone else does well on, then everyone has a better night, the audience especially, and they're the people we're doing it for, right? So for me, it's less of, oh well, I hope I get the biggest laughs on tonight. I mean, no, that's nice, but that's not why I do it now. Like, and also just that kind of, yeah, I've got to get better for me to do better and continue and continue and continue. As opposed to, well, they're not funnier than me, or they've got this material, and like, it just doesn't get you anywhere thinking like that. It's very hard to stop yourself thinking like that, but I had to. I absolutely had to just one day be like, this is not healthy, and going up and going, well, Levy's not as funny as I am, so why is he getting booked on all these gigs? Who knows? I have no idea why, right? It doesn't matter why. The fact of the matter is, I'm not getting booked on them. How do I then get booked on them? And the only way to do that is to do more gigs, write new jokes, get better. And it's 100% within my control then.
I
And
think
it
it.
stops
Sorry.
being, oh, no, it just stops me being a bad person.
But I feel like it's such a it's very healthy, but also it's the way it is, because I always, or like I think maybe a year or so ago, um I was in a not similar position, but I was kind of like, oh, why am I not getting like this and this and this? And then I thought, I think you can only again control what you do, and that's
Mm,
so true. And also I just thought, if you do well, you just gotta work, like just gotta do so well that I think it goes to that bit where you just work hard and do so well that you actually can't be ignored. But it gets
yeah,
to the point like now because say again a year ago I would message someone, I'd be like, and they're like, no. While now, and it was amazing that I think a couple, I think, yeah, for example, the one of the night I did in Camden a couple of, like a few weeks ago, the one I was talking about earlier, it was something that I've applied and I've asked for ever since I moved to London, and it was for 2 years. It was no,
I
no,
think I
no,
know them.
no.
Yeah.
And now it's a yes. And I was like, shit, yeah, perfect. You know, you got it.
That's brilliant, man. But that's so nice when that happens. And the thing with comedy that I don't know if people know is that it's almost like a computer game, right? So you'll start at the bottom level doing open mics, and then you'll start to level up. And then, okay, so now I've got a good 5 minute. Now what do I do with that 5 minutes? Well, I've got to go to the slightly better open mics, and then I've got to go slightly better open mics. And then every time you sort of level up, and then it's okay, I've got a headline spot at these first open mics, and then every time, like, you sort of progress. Okay, I'm getting paid gigs now, and then you're back at the bottom again, and it's like it's constantly hard to not be the worst person in any room anytime you progress because
That's so
you
true.
it is, and it's a nightmare. Like, I don't know why we do this, but the idea is like, yeah, I can either stop and be the best person at a 5 minute open mic in the front of a pub, or as soon as I take that next step, I'm the worst person in a 10 minute spot. And then the next step you go up, you'll become the best person at 10 minute spots. And then you're the worst person at 15s. And then you go up, you're the worst person on a page bill. But it's just how it is, and how it's just the nature of it.
That's so
And
true.
it
Yeah.
drives me crazy.
It
Yeah,
does
but it's the
sometimes you.
process, isn't it?
And I
Yeah.
feel it's also so humbling, you know, where you go and you're like, oh my God, I'm crushing this. This is going so well. And then you get that like one spot like you were saying where you're like, oh, this is your first 10 on a like say a semi-pro night or like a even
Yeah.
you know like yeah, and then you go there and you're like, or I remember when I did the backyard on a Thursday for the first time not long
Oh,
ago,
nice.
and but the thing is, I did it and I was like, oh my God, it went so well. Like they were loving it. And then this like professional, I forgot his name, but this like pro comedian comes to close up, and
Mm.
he just, you know, like everyone just went crazy. And then you're kind of like, oof, because it was just so like, because to me I was like, oh my God, I've got the best, or like, you know, I was like, I was almost there, you know, again, like people were in love with what I was doing. And then this guy
Nice.
comes, takes over, and then you're like, yeah, so I got so much more to do,
Yeah.
which again,
Yeah.
it's annoying, but also it's nice because I think especially for people like me, you know, when you've got so much stuff to worry about, to actually be able to just have something to look forward to, where you're like, you know, one day I'll get there, like one day, this is the goal now, the plan is to get that good.
Yeah. And that's the best way of thinking about it, in my experience, is just look at it and go, well, how do I reach that level? Right? It's not about bringing other people down. It's not about any of that. Like that backyard, I've only ever done it once, and it was their new comedian night. I did it the night before I had to move house. But it had been booked up so far in advance that I couldn't cancel it. And so I went to this gig, did the gig. It was all in the back of my mind the whole time. I was running newish material as well. So I was like, I've got the old set, but I think this set is stronger, even though I've not done it as much. And so I picked that set to do. It's probably my second or third time doing it. And the guy went, where do you want to go on the bill? I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm easy. And so he put me on in the third act. So there's 3 parts. Put me on in the third. And I went up, and I think, like, in my head, I feel like on that night, I feel I was probably the best new act there. But I went on in between a guy who's been doing it 10 years and a TV comedian. So it really, really showed up how new I was. And then I've applied for it since. And the guy went, remind me who you are. I'm like, oh, no, that's not a response you want. So I sent him a link to his own YouTube page with me on it. And he's never written back to me.
You know, again, it is the struggles that we gotta, but we'll push through. You know, we'll get there
Yeah.
eventually.
Absolutely. It's just about working. This is a job, right? I mean, as much as I love it, like, it's still work. And the amount of admin that goes into it, planning, producing, everything. Like, remember to set your camera up, remember to do this, and then you got to watch it back. There's so much that goes into it. And it's
True.
not just, walk up on stage and be funny.
No,
No.
I think the idea that, oh, here is like, I think when you see this thing where like, oh, you're getting paid for 10 minutes, you're actually getting paid for hours
Yeah.
of again, excluding the traveling and the work on the day. It's
Yeah.
about the hours of work to get there that you're getting
Yes.
paid for, the material that you have to try for. Sometimes I think I had jokes that I've done for, yeah, since around the time I started, so almost 2 years of just trying it, or just like, I think I had an idea that it never worked, and now it started working because I worked at it, and you're
Hmm.
like, but you're technically paying for that time that I had to basically keep on polishing this shit until I got to the point to where I am now.
Absolutely. Like, my brother says a similar thing to me before. So he does sports therapy stuff. So
Nice.
someone, he's been doing it for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, something like that. And then I think it's 20, right? And then someone goes, "Oh, how much is it for an hour session?" And he gave them a number. I don't know what he charges, but I'm just going to say £100. And they go, £100 a lot of money for only an hour. He's like, it's not about the hour. You're paying for my 20 years of experience. You're not paying
True.
for 1 hour with a new person. Like, it's a very different 1 hour you're going to get. And
True.
it's totally true. And it's a good way of looking at it, because the amount of work we've put in, I mean, knock out hundreds and hundreds of gigs a year, like, just going at it every week, like several times a week, and just working hard. And like I say, was it Tom Cruise who said about, like, he might not be the best actor or something, but he'll outwork anyone, something like that.
It sounds like something
And
that he would say, yes.
yeah. Maybe about not being the best actor. That doesn't sound like him. But there's this thing of him just outwork everyone around him, and that's sort of what I'm trying to do to a degree. Is just do it that way. Like, and when I hit my ceiling, I hit my ceiling, but I don't know where my ceiling's going to be yet. So until I get there, we don't know how it's going to go.
That's a very inspirational way to wrap up as well. By the way, it's such a beautiful, you just, yeah, try and hit your ceiling. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
try and get as close to the ceiling as possible for anyone listening. But now,
exactly.
where do people like check out your work? Anything that yeah, anything that's happening until like the end of the year, or anything like that. But also, yeah, I think most importantly, yeah, where do people find your work, and where do they keep in touch with you if anyone wants to give you a follow?
Yeah, cool. So I'm on Instagram and YouTube and things as Andrew Dipple Comedy, Dipple. So yeah, everything's just Andrew Dipple Comedy, I think.
Nice.
Um,
That's very easy and very good.
I really hope it is, because I'm bad at social media. So I was like, let's just make it as simple for me as possible. Every time I have to do something, I feel so old. It's great.
I think it does, like, the name. It's a great one, because again, it's simple and it's there and you got it. But
Yeah,
yeah, with I wouldn't worry. I feel like people who are very good at social media are probably people who spend a lot of time on it, which I don't have, unfortunately.
no, same. Yeah,
But Andrew, it was such a great. I had such a nice time catching up.
yeah. Likewise, mate. It's been really good,
Thank you so much. And is there anything you wanted to say, or anything you need before we say goodbye?
mate. Just keep smiling. Yeah, it's
Cool.
been nice.
Well, thank you, and we'll talk later. Bye bye.
Cool. Right, take care.
Was good, right? Hope you enjoyed. I definitely enjoyed recording it, and you know the drill. I'll have Andrew's socials in the bio, and as usual, if you want to keep up with my stuff, get updates on everything live, comedy, kitties related. Check out my socials too, and we'll hear from me again next week. Until then, from me, Pickle, and Sarma, stay skillful. Bye.